everybody, and welcome back to Hooked on Hitchcock. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I've got my awesome co-host here, Larry Butler. How you doing, Larry?
Hey. Yeah, great to be with you again, Jonathan.
Oh, yes. I'm really excited about this one. This movie that we're talking about today is The Wrong Man. I'm glad we didn't get the wrong movie, but we got the right, we got the right movie and the wrong man. So to go into a little bit of a story behind it, this is actually based on a true story, not just any true story, but they did everything they could to make this film actually be accurate to what happened to this poor guy. There was, I will tell you, I don't know if you know this, Larry, or not, but the biggest problems that they had that the writers had were trying to recreate the police procedure stuff, mainly because the police did not cooperate with them, mainly because they did not want to look bad, because they got the wrong guy. They thought that a movie would make them as the police department look like they can't do their job, which, I mean, in essence, they did do their job. They did, and the way they show it is they did everything as right as they could, given evidence and other things that they had. I mean, they had so much proof on this guy. It was insane, right?
Yeah. Well, I think they're prejudiced against him a little bit. I really feel that way. Like they thought they had the right guy, so they didn't really believe his testimony at all. And
I mean, when evidence kind of shows, to go into how crazy it was, everybody, pointed fingers at him. Everybody, except there was when he. My favorite scenes are the scenes where he had to walk into the stores and just walk around and walk back out, and the woman was just like, I'm just not. She wasn't sure, if that was the guy or not, having seen him or whatever. She couldn't positively ID him there at the store. The other guy, I'm not sure. The other, not the guy that was with her, but the other store, he kind of seemed to think that was him, or whatever. And what?
He followed his lead because she wasn't convinced, but he's like the alpha male in the store.
Oh, I'm talking about the other store. There's the first store that he went into. That one guy saw him, and it looked like he was like, okay, that's the guy. But when you see the actual guy, he looks very much like Henry Fonda. Like you would probably.
I have an opinion on that. He didn't really look that much like him. And in real life, he really did. Did you see the pictures of the two? That was amazing because they look so, alike.
Yeah.
Except the real robber had no upper lip. He must have been Irish or something. But and then his ears stuck out a little bit more. But other than that, they're very similar. But in the movie, Henry Fonda didn't look like that guy. Especially
are you saying Henry Fonda didn't look like the guy that he was playing? No. I meant that the guy that was actually that was caught at the end of the movie.
I don't believe he looked like him either. I really studied that.
I thought they looked similar enough where they had that one scene where he says, what did you know what you did to my wife? And they them together. I could see it. I could see why.
There was some similarity, but it wasn't really precise.
Well, maybe that was the big thing is it was enough to
they say the same thing about people who've seen Bigfoot or aliens or whatever. Everybody gives a different description. Nobody remembers exactly anything.
I would be terrible if somebody asked me to give a where the cops ask you to do they'll draw the what the person looks like and everything. What?
You got to pick them out of a lineup.
Well, no, not just the lineup, but like, you know how you're supposed they're supposed to like do a character drawing of what the person looks like when you kind of describe it to them. I'd be terrible at that because I like even you. I've seen you a million times, and I couldn't describe you to as a police sketch artist. That's what I'm saying. A sketch artist. I couldn't describe you. I would just say, you know, he had glasses and gray hair. You know, that's literally all I'd be able to say.
Yeah. Some people are really good at it, but if you're trained to do it, like police are, but the regular citizen, no.
No.
But to start with, like a pointed chin, a really broad chin, a big nose, little nose, you know, like eyes, color, you know, the ears, and the whole bit. They don't know.
Well, so anyway, we kind of went into a little bit too much. We didn't actually describe the story, you know, at all.
Yeah.
And we said it's based on a true story. So it's about this guy named Manny who what?
Go ahead. Sorry. We were on the thing about where he went in and turned around. I wanted to add one thing. He didn't help his case at all because he looked so stern and guilty. You know, have you noticed? When he went in, he didn't smile. You know, if I was the guy, I would have said, "Hi, how you doing?" You know, be friendly.
He was nervous. I mean, I get it. Like
him, but I think he was the type of guy that was just a kind of very stern, somber person. He wasn't overly friendly and, you know, chatty and all of this stuff that you know normally associate.
Yeah.
People. You know, he was a bass player, and that explains it. You know, it's like dum, you know, melody, no nothing. And a certain type of people would play that kind of instrument. They don't really have any personality.
Exactly. So to go to the story. So it's about this guy, Manny. He's a jazz musician, works at the club as a bassist, you know, at the Stork Club, which is actually a real place. And they did film inside this real Stork Club. In fact, most of the locations were actual real locations from the from the stuff that actually happened, you know. So like the convenience stores or the banks or whatever, those were, you know, real locations. So in fact, I'll get into this in a second. So so Manny is just this average guy. He's got this amazing wife who loves him to death, but she's sort of right, like in the beginning, she's got a toothache. You know, she needs to get her what is it, the stuff looked at. She has an impact teeth and everything, so she needs to go to the dentist, but it costs like $300. So he's trying to get $300 out of the life insurance policy that they have.
Money in those days.
I know. So he's like, I need to get, you know, $300 out of my life insurance, my wife's life insurance policy. And as it gets there, this woman at the I guess the bank is just kind of freaked out, you know, and she notices him holding, apparently, you know, putting his hand in his pocket. That was the first thing. And that was what I guess the guy that held up the place had done. And so she was a little worried about this guy. So she checked in, and everybody said that's the guy, you know, that's the guy that held the place up. So they called the police. The police pick him up before he got to tell his wife and kids.
Yeah, they wouldn't call her or anything.
They wouldn't let him call him. And on top of that, they said, "Oh, we're taking care of it," you know, later, when they weren't, you know, which I thought was a pretty shitty thing to do. Like, just let him call. Let him just like let her know like where he's at right now so she can help him, you know. But anyway, so they pick him up, and the first thing they do is make him go through that stuff we said, which is go to all the different, you know, stores and walk in all the way to the back, then turn around and walk out, and that was it. So he does that, but he's all nervous, so he doesn't know what to do, and he kind of looks at the first guy, and he's all freaked out, you know, like what's going, you know. Oh, right. Really, he looks guilty, yes.
I thought he did it too.
Yeah, I mean, he looked guilty. So he walked out and back in the car, then drove to the next place. And that was when the girl said, "Hey, can you take your hat off?" And she still couldn't figure out if he was the guy or not because it'd been like a while ago or whatever. So she let him, they let him go back. So he's back at the police station and they ask him to do the coolest part that I liked was that they asked him to do to write a note, because the stick up guy had actually written a note that said, and they got the note. I guess he left the note with them or something, and it said like, I have, I have a gun in my pocket. Don't make any sudden moves. Just give me the money or out of the drawer. Right. So the first time he writes it, they're like, okay, this is similar handwriting. So that's not looking good, but do it again. We'll give it another try. So he does it again. And this time they're like, no, this is not good for you because you left off the ER. I think that's how you spell drawer. I'm not even sure how you spell drawer, to be honest. I think it's DRAWER, and he left that part off and just had draw, which is exactly what the first guy did. Now, he says, well, I must have been doing it really fast. I didn't think about it, but that didn't make him look good.
No, I have a theory about that. You remember how they didn't show him the first note, but they did. And so the second time they did it, he tried to say the same thing. He noticed the draw of the first man, and he subconsciously.
I don't think he saw it. I don't think he did.
I didn't see the movie again, or I would have picked that up. But normally I see it twice. This time I just too busy. But I only watched it once, so I can't say that, but I'm pretty sure that they kept it away from him. No, they turned it around and said, see?
Right, at the end, but in the beginning, they never showed it to him.
I don't remember.
Yeah. If now, you might be right. If they did, then he's going to obviously try to do exactly what was written.
I don't know if they tricked him or that was just an accident.
I think that was an accident, but it was a bad accident that cost him.
Especially the second guy, not the lead detective, who was great, by the way. Harold J. Stone plays that part. I've seen him in other things. He's a great actor. But the second guy really kind of had a case against me. You notice how stern he was? And I read that in some reviews on it, that he just almost hated him. And he was sure that he was the guy. And every time you see a close-up, he was like smirking. Like he was, I call him a jerk with a smirk.
A jerk with a smirk. That rhymes.
Much summed him up. He was a like one-dimensional cardboard cutout. He didn't really have much personality other than hating the culprit.
Yeah. Are you talking about the guy who, when he does well, yeah,
the second guy that didn't have many lines. Remember, he went in the store with him when he went in and turned around, and he watched from the door.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was thinking about the guy that really hated him, because there was a guy that comes in later when he got when he got basically fingered at the end, where the woman at the lineup said that that's him, and everything, and then he was like, you got to give us something else, or we're gonna lock you away and stuff like that. That guy, and I didn't like him at all. I was like, damn, he's coming off like a little hard, man.
No wonder the cops didn't want to participate.
Right. It does make them look bad, and
I like it.
I'm sure the real cops who dealt with this, who I'm not sure if they used their real names or whatnot, but I'm sure they were not happy with the portrayal, because even though like they fucked up, majorly in a way. Well, I mean, but it's not even like they, like I said, they fucked up, but they didn't fuck up, like they did their best. You know what I mean? Like they tried, but and they had all the evidence stacked against this dude. He even talked about how this is just bad. bad news, like for poor Henry Fonda, who I thought, I don't think he's ever worked with Hitchcock before or after, unless he did a Hitchcock Presents.
Hitchcock has a problem with almost everybody that he works with. I was wondering if he had conflict with Fonda, or maybe he was just in awe of him and he, kind of didn't want to disagree with him on anything. But
I wonder if Henry Fonda was a method actor, because he does not like method actors. He does not enjoy working with people who question him, and
Fonda isn't one that overly emotes anyway. He's an actor that's very close to the vest. Have you noticed?
Mhm.
Every actor who's ever played pretty much is kind of like the way he played this, kind of not very talkative and kind of like very emotionally constrained.
Mhm.
So that's just the way he was. So he's perfect for the role.
He was perfect for the role, especially if the real guy, Manny, was like that.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's why his blasé personality, I wrote, made him seem like a hardened, unfeeling criminal. So to me, and so they misconstrued that for like hiding his guilt, no expression, no emotion, didn't want to give anything away, didn't want to talk too much about it. He didn't overly explain himself.
mhm.
I'm not guilty. But he didn't want to explain it or protest.
I mean, there's really not much he can, because like too much was already like going against him,
Yeah, sometimes it can, but God, if that was me, I would be protesting till the day is long. I was like, I'm not guilty. I'm not, explain all these other things. I would not just sit there and take it.
Yeah. I mean,
Why?
that was his choice, that was a thing where, I mean, once again, this was, so in the beginning of the movie, Hitchcock explains that that this is actually not just based on real events, because a lot of movies they'll say based on real events, but they'll change a lot of stuff for cinematic purposes. But he really tried to make this as accurate as possible. Once again, the only thing I think that the police procedure might have been as close as they could, to what really happened, and maybe a little bit different, than that or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, so I loved I love that. So he ends up getting bail because his wife contacts some people, and they help raise his money and get his bail. So he gets out on bail, and they get a lawyer who's
dollars, which back in those days was equivalent to about $75,000. So
yeah, it's a lot of money. And so they put up the bail. So he gets out and he gets a lawyer, and the lawyer is sort of new to criminal cases, which he lets them know, and they're okay with that as long as he's does the best job he can, and he ends up telling them, well, you need to find people who can be your alibis for those specific days. So he remembers certain people, and he goes to their houses, and they're dead. Like, they go to one house, they find out, oh, these people don't live here anymore, and one of them's dead, right?
Let's explain that a little bit. He went to a resort, right? Or they went to a resort, he and his wife, and they were trying to remember 2 specific dates that they could establish an alibi. So they went to this one, I forget what it's called, Shady Acres or whatever. And so they talked to the manager and the wife, and they were willing to testify.
Mm-hmm.
They were on the register. That probably would have been enough. But then they wanted to make it one step further and and visit with the guys that they played cards with. But like you said, they found that they were both deceased. But there was one guy who was outstanding, and I don't know if they ever resolved that. He was a boxer, an ex-prize fighter, and they couldn't find him. So that they were like out of that 1, 2, 3, you're out.
Right. And so, like you said, though, there was that one person who, like, at the resort or whatever, the family at the resort or whatever that could help them, and
probably wasn't enough.
And so as this is happening and all this stuff's happening on him, the wife's having a mental breakdown. She's, becoming a nervous breakdown. She's thinks this is all her fault, and everything. She thinks that it was, because, he went to get the stuff from her loan for her, right? That
Right.
this is all on her, that this is her fault. And I really, I felt so terribly sorry for Vera Miles, who played Rose. Vera Miles was wonderful, by the way. Hitchcock used her again in Psycho. From what I've understood, he wanted somebody else for that role or whatever, I believe. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But he ended up going with Vera Miles, and he had worked with her before, and so on this, and she did a fantastic job. I thought she did great, and she has this nervous breakdown, and he has to commit her to a hospital, and that is all true. That is all true, and it is nuts that happened. So real quick, I want to read this to you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I found a New York Post, article about this movie. Right. In January 1953, Ballestero went to borrow money from his wife's life insurance plan. He was taken into custody after two employees at the insurance office identified him as the man who robbed the office of a total of $271 during two robberies the previous year. As painstakingly recounted in the film, shot on many actual locations, Ballestero was waiting the second trial. The first had ended abruptly after a juror made a remark, and we'll get to that, when the actual culprit was apprehended during an attempted deli robbery. Cops noticed that suspect Charles James Daniel, an unemployed plastics worker, bore an uncanny resemblance to Ballestero. Under questioning, Daniel admitted committing more than 40 robberies and claimed the plan to come forward if Ballestero were convicted of this at a second trial. What made the case especially poignant and attracted national attention is what happened to Ballestero's wife, Rose. Blaming herself for Manny's arrest, the money he was trying to borrow was for dental work she needed. She suffered a nervous breakdown. The mother of two young sons, she remained institutionalized until September 1955. Ballestero told the Post in an interview while The Wrong Man was in production. My life did not start over again when I was cleared, said Ballestero, who moved his family to Florida after his wife's release. I figured if we're going to really get a fresh start, everything's got to be different. We left our friends, our relatives, our home, our furniture, everything. Ballestero sued the city and insurance company for $500,000 for false arrest and settled out of court for $7,000. He sold the film rights to the story for $22,000, but told the Post that not much was left after repaying loans for the cost of Rose's institutionalization. Manny, who went back to work as a musician and loved the Hitchcock movie, died in a nursing home in 1998, but Rose, who died 14 years earlier, never fully recovered, contrary to a written coda at the end of Wrong Man, which was 2 years, supposedly just 2 years. So, obviously, if she, they must not have known. She suffered a great bit, their son Gregory, a retired industrial engineer and author, said in 2014, when the intersection of 73rd Street and 41st Avenue near the old family home in Jackson Heights was renamed Manny the Wrong Man Ballestero Way. It's kind of a way to make up for the pain and suffering that went through, said Gregory, who was 5 at the time of his father's arrest and attended the street naming ceremony with his brother Robert, who had been 12 and teased by his classmates at school. Manny Ballestero discussing the devastating impact of his wrongful arrest in a 1953 Life magazine article. Be careful of accusing anyone, he said. Before you accuse anyone, you should think, because you can destroy a family, physically and mentally, like mine could have been destroyed.
Yeah, well said. I read the same thing. That's pretty much a distillation of the entire movie. Um, but I want to add something to that. God, I don't even know where to begin, but uh, so I wanted to touch on the fact that they were desperately poor to begin with, and that's something that the cops used against them, because
Mm.
he used to play the horses, but just on paper, he didn't actually bet. But it made, because they asked him, "Do you bet on horses?" And he said, "Well, yes." But he didn't explain it fully. He should have said, "Well, just on paper, I don't actually bet on them." I just, and then they thought maybe he was out of money and he owed money to the mob. So they got deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. First the lawyer, the big time attorney, then the institutionalization of his wife. And then, and on and on and on. I mean, it got worse and worse. The poor guy, he had the luck of the Irish. If he didn't have bad luck, he'd have none at all. And so it really became very depressing for him. Poor guy was alone because his wife accused him of the robbery, actually, when she snapped and she hit him with a hairbrush.
Yeah.
My God, I mean, how much can the guy take?
I have to ask you, did you enjoy the movie?
Well, I first said I tried to make it funny. I kept hitting my head on my desk and I was falling asleep. There was part that really dragged, and
Which part do you think dragged?
a lot of it. It was just so.
Really? I didn't think so.
It's just my opinion. Okay.
No, it's a great opinion, and I want to hear that. And
all right, here's why. It started out, usually Hitchcock leads you to believe that the guy might be guilty, and then he's found innocent. This time, the way it was formatted, for some reason, it was like, I just assumed he was innocent. And so then it was like there was no suspense. The whole movie was just like, oh, okay.
I think, to me, I sort of beg to differ. I think the suspense comes with finding out all of these different things that just doesn't work out, like you think every second, like, there's no way that this could happen. And then bam, it happens, and it happened for real, because this is like
Oh,
that. And maybe that's the problem that you have with it. Maybe you enjoy Hitchcock when it's more fictionalized and, and whatnot. This is true to life.
ruined for me because they say, in the like tagline, this is an innocent guy that was almost found guilty. And it's like, ahead of time. It's like, give me a break here. I want to see the movie. Don't tell me how it ends. So,
I mean, most people probably back in those days, in the day that it first came out, because you have to remember, back in the 1950s, movies didn't go on VHS or whatever. They were in the theater for a couple weeks, months, whatever, and then they were gone. You're never seen again, really. You make as much money as you can on this movie, then you move on. And the thing is that most people probably knew the story of Manny Ballestero and his family and stuff like that. They probably read articles about this stuff, so they knew he was innocent. They knew he was the wrong man, which is what the title of the movie is. So really, if you think about it, if this isn't made, when they do this stuff, it's not made for us who may not have seen this movie. And you definitely didn't see this movie back in 1953 or whatever, I mean,
well, it's 3 years old, so I didn't see it back then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you didn't see it, but other people, probably knew the story. Like your family probably knew the story of what happened. So when Hitchcock comes to the screen and says, all this stuff, like this is about an innocent man and all this stuff, I mean, everybody already knew. So really the suspense was like, where is this going? Like, how is he gonna, like, how is he going to get out of this? And that was the suspense to me, is how was Manny going to get out of being a and I didn't know how, because I didn't read the articles till after. So I was
see that again because I always find little things to enjoy the second time. But this was not my favorite Hitchcock movie by far.
Oh no, that's not my favorite either. But I think this is honestly, I liked it better than the last one.
Okay.
A little bit better. And that's not to say that, any of the movies are worse or whatever. Like Hitchcock's still a master of cinema,
Yeah. No doubt about it. But this received mixed reviews. Now, I saw a lot of them, and they kind of agreed with me, some of them. And I just thought, anyway, it's
right. Well, that's understandable, especially when you're watching. Because, like I said, I think you and most of the other people that watch these Hitchcock movies are expecting Hitchcock. Like they're expecting.
entertained. I really wasn't on this, and it was a documentary type style, which is
Yeah.
for him. It was almost like I was watching something on 60 Minutes, and it was kind of a theatrical. What do they call that when they show something that actually happened and they kind of use actors to do it?
It's a docu something.
But yeah, it was a reenactment.
Yeah, a reenactment. That's
Exactly
good.
what it was. So it wasn't my favorite type of thing. But
So one of the things they did is they used a real jail. They didn't make those jails or whatever. They used real jails. And if you, I don't know if you know this, but if you listen specifically, and I didn't hear it, but I wasn't paying attention, if you can actually hear somebody in the background, one of the jailmates or whatever, jail people, people in the jail go, hey, Henry, what are you in here for? And so it was funny because I guess they weren't aware that this was being filmed. To make it look real, make it look like it was a real thing.
very, very astute of you. My hearing's not too.
No, I didn't hear it. I just read about it. So I need to, at some point I'm going to buy the Blu-ray of this. As I said, this isn't my favorite. I still feel like it's a really good Hitchcock movie. And I feel like it's a movie people should see, especially if you want to dive into Hitchcock a little bit more. But understand, like, this isn't, like, if you've never seen a Hitchcock movie, this is not a Hitchcock movie.
No.
Like, this isn't his normal thing. I think that was the main thing that attracted him.
He was experimenting with different forms, different.
Yeah, he actually did. He originally. So what you may or may not know is that he had a deal with Warner Brothers for a while and Transatlantic Pictures. So he was going to be he had a contract for 8 years, an 8-year contract. And he had to honor that contract with a certain number of movies. I forgot how many, like 4 or something. So he had to do like 4 movies for them. And he did like Rope and Under Capricorn. And I forgot what the other one was, but he also did this one for them. And the thing was, he did not want to work with Warner Brothers anymore. I don't know what the problem was, but he didn't. He wanted to go. I think he had a better deal with Paramount. Paramount like offered him more money, and so he actually agreed to do this movie because Warner Brothers bought the rights to this story. And he said, "I will do this movie for free if basically you let me out of my contract, so I can go and work on other films too." And they said, sure. So then he went and tried to get Hayes, one of his writers, John Michael Hayes, to come and join him. But they wouldn't pay John Michael Hayes, right, either. And so he tried to get him to do it for free. And John Michael Hayes said, I can't do it for free. And even if he could have, or even if he agreed to it, WGA, Writers Guild, would never have let him. So he ended up, him and Hitchcock. Hitchcock said, if you don't do this thing with Warner Brothers with me, we'll never speak again. And John Michael Hayes said, that's fine, right? I'm not doing this. So they didn't speak for a few years. And then they saw each other at a ballet, and was it John Michael Hayes walked up to Hitchcock, and they were both cordial with each other, but you could still tell that Hitchcock did not want to talk to him at all. So that was an interesting thing. But they did get a couple really good writers and to come on board. I'm trying to remember the writers' names in this. Let me bring them up real quick. Maxwell Anderson and Angus MacPhail are the main two writers. You might know Maxwell Anderson as the guy who adapted All Quiet on the Western Front. He did Key Largo. He wrote The Bad Seed. He wrote Meet Joe Black, the original. He was a contributing writer to Ben-Hur. He was a contributing writer for Vertigo. And what else? He did a lot of stuff. Most of these were just based on his plays, because he wrote a lot of plays. But this was like The Wrong Man was one of the first, movies he did that wasn't based on a play and was just based on a story that he wrote, I believe, for like one of the newspapers or so. So let's see. So then was the other one is Angus MacPhail, which I think is terrible. It's spelled like MacPhail, MacPhail. But he wrote Spellbound, which did we do Spellbound?
I don't believe so. Did we?
We haven't done Spellbound yet, have we? Wait. Well, that was the one we just did, wasn't it?
Was it? God, we're both suffering from.
Man, our mind is completely blank right now.
That was yes, back in March.
Yeah.
Before I Confess, it was Spellbound. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes. So okay. Yeah, we did do Spellbound. Oh, he wrote Spellbound as well. God, man, my brain. It's what? It's because I do a million podcasts and I watch a million movies. And I just totally forget. But I remembered like watching that again recently. He had done he'd done Spellbound, he did Whiskey Galore, Frida, Dead by Night, bunch of scripts I've never really heard of, but they look like they might be fun. Anyway, so you worked with a couple good writers, and you know what? My favorite scene is him walking in the jail cell, because there's a great shot of the lights, and like up high, and they're walking him through the hall, and it's just the way it's shot was just like, oh, that's just the classic like Hitchcock kind of shot.
Talking about the tilt-a-wheel trick that
no, I like that too, but I'm talking this was simple. This was simple.
I would have preferred that Henry Fonda would have internalized this when he wasn't capable of it, rather than do tricks like that. That was a theatrical trick.
You don't like those? I think that's cool.
I like stuff like that. I'd rather that he freaked out on his own and made it more human, rather than from his perspective, seeing the world go around and around. And I just, I pull back from that. So
yeah, I get it.
By that time, he was in fragile emotional health, and I know he was freaking out because he was in prison for the first time. And but I just didn't like the way they did it. I thought it was like a cheap parlor trick. But,
no, I get it. I liked it, but that's my
for everybody.
That's my thing. We all have, I'm more like of a director who doesn't have a visual style. So when I see somebody having one, I kind of drawn to it because I'm trying to get better at that.
When you look at it with a different viewpoint. As a director, I look at it as an actor.
Right.
That changes things a little bit. But I want to talk about some of the little bits and pieces that we might have overlooked. Like in the court, I noticed things like this. Did you know there was only 2 women on the jury? It was mostly men. And I counted the people in the jury box, there was 15. So in those days, did they have alternates with the jury? Because that might have been a mistake. It should be only 12 people. I don't think they used to have 15 people. And also, when he looked around the courtroom, have you noticed that everybody was disinterested? They were bored, they were kind of like distracted. And he said, he was thinking this about, here, my life is at stake and nobody even gives a shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, that kind of struck me. I like that part of it. How he realized that nobody really cared what had happened.
I mean, it got to the point where that juror got up and was like, do we really need to hear this?
That's the point. Yes, I want to talk about that because that was a mistrial. Nobody can stand up and object. And they said that he was actually commenting on his guilt. I don't recall that so much, but he objects to the proceedings. So the judge said, this is cause for immediate mistrial. So he got lucky on that one. And they postponed his second trial, but he still had to go to jail, right?
What happens? Okay. So I don't understand that because say a juror screws up like that, right? Because they're told probably you can't talk, you can't object, you can't, or this is going to be declared as a mistrial, right? They're probably told that ahead of time. I've never actually been, and quote unquote, knock on wood, I don't really want to be part of a jury. I just a juror, but if you're on jury duty, you're probably told what to do, what not to do, right? So when they do that, when they get up and they say, do we really need to see that or whatever they say, and then that's grounds for a mistrial. Does the jury, juror member who did that, do they get in trouble? Do they get fined or anything? Because I mean that right there is money that is spent, that is wasted because somebody didn't listen to their, what they're supposed to do.
I don't know. That's a great thing for Google, but I know that they immediately suspend the trial, and they're very strict about certain points. That guy really screwed up, and so they have to start all over again. And for a technicality, some people get off actually that are guilty because of a technicality in the proceedings. So a lot of gangsters have lawyers that always look for stuff like that. So anyway, after that, he just had to wait. And so he visited his wife in the institution, and she just wants nothing to do with him at that point. And then the nurse behind him is kind of like with an empty smile as she tells him to leave. You're just wasting your time. And poor guy was at the end of his rope, and nobody's in his corner at all. It seems like it's a very, very bleak time in his life. And all the cops and witnesses are guilty of thinking him guilty. They ruined his life. And even when he kind of met the real guy when he got caught, and he says, you realize what you've done to my wife? Well, what did he do to him? I mean, he ruined his life.
Oh, but see, that seemed to be in par with that character of only caring about other people other than his own well-being, he cared about his wife, he cared about his kids, he cared about everybody else. He didn't really, I don't think it really ever sunk into him that it was, that this whole thing was about him, because he seemed like a very humble, very nice, very compassionate person. And, that sort of, that sort of problem, happens all the time, in a way where somebody who's very compassionate, very sweet, gets, taken advantage of by circumstances and stuff. And, how do they deal with that?
Did you ever have a moment in there where it was like a tear-jerking moment for you? With that scene with his eldest son, he was like 10 at home, and they have real mutual appreciation for each other. And
I thought it was sweet. I don't think I cried or anything.
Yeah,
I
I
don't think.
felt, emotional at that moment.
Yeah. Well, because he was telling his son, I hope that if you ever, if something bad like this ever happens to you when you're an adult, that you have a kid that you can look back, that's as sweet as you, and
Yeah,
kind of thing. And I thought that was a really nice touch for,
yeah.
like I wonder if the people who this really happened to, George and the sons, I wonder if they ever watched this movie, and just thought as an adult, and just thought to themselves like, you know, what I mean? Like I am very blessed to like because this probably hasn't happened to them. They've never been like this was just a bad luck. A
Oh,
circumstance, completely the worst luck ever.
what I was looking for in the actor, as an actor, uh, was real emotion, because in Golden Pond, he and his daughter really didn't like each other much. Um, Jane Fonda and Henry Fonda. So when they did Golden Pond, they improvised a little bit, and that was real emotion on her part, and I believe his too, when they kind of broke down and both kind of cried, because they weren't really close. And that's how they bonded on the scene, in that scene on Golden Pond. And so I was looking for that same emotion with a kid. And I don't know if he was faking it or it was real, but
It
yeah,
was. It seemed like a genuine emotion. I liked him in it. I liked him doing that, and I liked the kid. I thought it was so funny. One of my favorite lines in the movie is that the kid is they're talking about how Mozart wrote that song when they were 5, and
right.
he was like, one kid was like 12 or 10 or whatever it was, and like, well, I could definitely play it because I'm older than 5, and then the other kid's like, well, I'm 5, so I could write it. And I was like, that's
You
cute.
wish, buddy.
Yeah, I don't think everybody has the ear. Notice what I said,
I know
ear.
there's only 1 in 10 million Mozarts. But anyway, this film was billed as every moment is an eternity in suspense. And that's where I kind of disagree,
Oh,
because
I
the
disagree with that.
only suspense for me was whether the real robber would ever be caught.
Right, and that was I think that was supposed to be the suspense of like, how is this going to get, how is this going to get solved? Like every turn they try, somebody died, or just the
Yeah,
luck was just terrible,
there is a
and,
bad break.
they just, yeah, they had just a bad situation. But all in all, I all in all, looking back to this movie, I don't think I'd ever seen it. You know, I thought I did. Thought I rented this from the library years ago, but I don't think so. Um, so I don't think I'd ever watched it. And after watching it now, I'm like, it's a darn good movie. Like, I think people should see it, especially if you're an Alfred Hitchcock enthusiast, like ourselves. Like, we like to watch these things just to see what Alfred Hitchcock would do, or whatever, or see the master at work.
Right.
I feel like there's more to it. As you said, you like to watch the movies usually twice if you can.
Yes,
You know,
yeah, I recommend that highly. And
yeah.
I didn't have time this time, but I need to go back and see it. Hitchcock had a lifelong fear of the police, simply because his father, when he misbehaved, took him down to the precinct and scared the hell out of him.
Hmm.
He was terrified of the police. So that might have bled through on this movie, certain
Well,
parts.
I think that might also have been one of the reasons why it attracted him,
Yeah.
because he was just like, this is my chance to kind of show how scary the police are in some way or another. And what's funny is, nowadays with like the defund the police and all this other stuff, I mean, I wonder what like Hitchcock would be, how he would be like now, because there's so much, like, it's so different than it was back in the 50s, and everything. Like, things have definitely changed a lot, especially politically speaking. And I wonder if I honestly don't think he'd be any interest in making movies these days, just because the stories wouldn't be as, like, I don't know. I don't feel like he would, you know, it's not like it was back in the 50s and 60s,
Well, there's not as much human interaction. Most of these movies are shoot 'em up, bang, bang, big explosions, end of the world type apocalyptic things. So he enjoyed it, but he would have continued making his style, maybe. I don't know if he would have been as well received as he was, but he opens this movie with a narration, which is a departure for him, because usually there's kind of a sly cameo, kind of a humorous interaction with the world he created. And this time he stood apart and kind of, welcomed us to this movie.
It felt more like what William Castle does, which is like before every movie he would introduce, or what Hitchcock would later, or I don't know if he was doing it at the time, but for Alfred Hitchcock Presents,
I grew up watching that, so I really enjoy it. I have a lot of those movies at home.
Oh, you have a lot of the episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents? That's amazing. That's great.
But because it reminded me of my youth, I grew up in the 50s and in the 60s.
But this felt like an Alfred Hitchcock Presents the movie, if you think about it. This just, it doesn't have the same, suspense that, whatever. It's
very humorous and sly about how things, he kind of makes fun of himself and a lot of that stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. This was very serious too. Like his introduction to the movie was very like, hi, I'm Alfred Hitchcock and this is my film, and this is all true, which actually he filmed, by the way, he filmed a cameo appearance where coming out of the Stork Club. However, he deleted it. He took it out because he felt that adding himself twice would be,
I see. Because I was looking at that and I thought, no, not in this one.
No, because we got his cameo, and his cameo was just him. And this was the first and only time in any of the movies that he actually spoke to the audience.
The very first time. Yeah. Okay, I was thinking of the cameo. He only appeared in 40 out of the 54 movies that survived. I read somewhere that he didn't do every movie wasn't a cameo, just certain ones, but I don't know why or which ones. We're going to find out.
We'll find out because we'll go through them and you'll say, hey, you usually do that. You usually go, do you know where you find? I've got to start looking for them because I just never do. But as we've said before, he's usually in the beginning of the film somewhere, because he doesn't want people taking their time out to just try to find him.
It's then they distract her from the movie, but hopefully, I thought we were going to see all 86 movies, but I guess 54 survives, so we'll not be able to see all of them. Something happened.
Well, some things that he's directed were like TV shows and stuff too, so
maybe so.
So really, I mean, I don't know. We'll see what we can find or whatnot. I'm not even sure what we're gonna. I know I have it written down what we're gonna do next, but what I'm getting kind of frustrated was with just like The Wrong Man. This is hard to get. You have to get it through either. I don't know if you got it through Netflix or if you rented it.
Big bucks for this, $4 from Amazon. Then I found out later I could have gotten for $2 at YouTube. So if anybody wants to see it, it's only $2 on YouTube. But Frenzy is the next movie we're going to do.
That's also kind of, you have to rent it, because it's not easily available or whatever. It's not streaming or anything, which sort of gets me frustrated because even this film being a Warner Brothers movie, I imagined that it would have been on HBO Max because HBO Max has a bunch of the Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers and Warner Media owns HBO Max. So I figured this would be on HBO Max, and it's not.
You know,
And so I just don't know if they're gonna ever put out everything on streaming.
why don't they do this on TCM, Turner Classic Movies? Because it's a good fit. But
It
maybe
might be available in Turner Classic Movies in the
do they
it
have
might,
their streaming platform or
I
something?
don't think so. I think they work with HBO Max,
Oh, right.
So I think a lot of the TCM movies, not all of them, obviously, but a lot of the ones that they do are on HBO Max. So it should be there. Like I said, some of the films that he did later were with Paramount, so I figured that those would be on Paramount Plus. And I don't think there's, I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look into it, but I don't think there's any films. There might be one or two that's on Paramount Plus, and that sort of frustrates me that these companies have like, I don't know what the deal is, like how hard it is for them to do this, or if they have to, certain things that they have to get the rights to, or whatever. But anywho, I was just glad that I did get to rent it for $4 on Amazon, and it was well worth it. Like this movie, I was, because it was like $4 or it was like $10 to own, and I was like, I don't know if I want to own it, because I don't really remember it, So I was like, I'll probably rent it, and if I like it enough, I'll buy it on Blu-ray someday, because it's on Warner Archives, has put this out on Blu-ray. So if you are a fan of Hitchcock and want to have like a good collection like myself, Blu-rays, I would suggest buying it for $17 on Amazon for the Blu-ray. I think it's worth $17. I'll eventually get it and rewatch it at some point or another. And maybe we'll review this at some point. Because I feel like this is a movie that deserves like a second or third viewing and kind of discussion about whether or not it got better on the second time or not. This movie could have been you could have felt the same as the first time. So
Yeah, if we want to cycle through the first 50 movies and start again.
I don't think we'll start again, but we may do like maybe we'll do like a Patreon only thing where our Patreon members can listen to us do another review of this or something. But that won't be for another year or two, when down the line, not like tomorrow, but down the line we might be able to review it if you're interested in doing that.
I'm eager to see some other stuff he's done, because I'd only seen a couple movies of his prior to this. This is an amazing experience.
Well, this is why, because I remember the catalyst for this, like what started this whole thing, was I came to your house and we did an IFC episode, and then we decided to do a show for, I forgot which one it was for, Film Freaks or something, but it was us talking about Hitchcock, and everything, because that was before you and Bonnie got hooked up to doing little stinkers for us. But you and I were discussing Hitchcock, and you were a fan of like the stuff that you've seen of his, but you did tell me you hadn't really seen that many and stuff, and you were sort of in awe of the fact that I knew a lot about him. But I mean, as you can see, I have this book, which is called A Life in Darkness and Light, Alfred Hitchcock. And I've got a bunch of others also done by the same writer. I've got another one called the Hitchcock's Notebooks, and a bunch of other ones that are just all about Hitchcock and how he works, and the stuff that they've done research on for his films. So
Did you notice in the movie that the Manny was the one that they thought was guilty. Manny's mother begs him to pray, and then there's a close up of Jesus, the picture, and I was wondering, and then of course I remember that Hitchcock was raised in a Jesuit school, so not only was he terrified of police, but he had this fixation on religion for some strange reason. Because
well, there you go.
so
He got to put a lot of his self into the movies.
Sure does.
You know, which is great. That's what I feel like most filmmakers should.
Yeah, everybody does, consciously or otherwise. But yeah, some people just do it subconsciously. But
yeah, I
closer.
bet Alfred Hitchcock does it consciously and subconsciously. I think there's some things he puts in there specifically because he knows, you know, this is what I want to put in there. And then there's other times he's just like, oh, I didn't even think about that, you know, like that just happened.
Yeah.
And well, maybe not. He's very Kubrick-like. Kubrick and him have the thing where they know exactly what each shot is going to be before they shoot it and everything. They have storyboards and they have
yeah, he's very methodical.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. So I think most of the time, if it's in there, there's a, you know, he knows it's in there and there's a reason it's in there.
Yeah, I read that he's very meticulous. Every shot is thought through thoroughly. He's almost, irritating to everybody around him. He has to be precise. And
exactly.
Over and over and over till it's exact. But yeah, I mean, but it works. So yeah, this is really an interesting movie to go through and comment on.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Larry. This has been fun. And it's about that time. We want to thank you all for listening and checking this out. If you've seen The Wrong Man, tell us your thoughts. You know, did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Were you bored? You know, were you not bored? You know, I particularly wasn't, but I can see where other people might think it's slow, which is very surprising because I have the attention span of a gnat. So like you would think that there are movies that are like slow burn movies that I can't sit through because I'm just like, get to the point, you know. But this particular movie, I didn't find it that way. I felt it went pretty fast, you know.
There were times, but I not the whole movie, of course. But thank you, Professor Moody. Educated us all again.
Well, I try. I think, honestly, this movie was sort of the right kind of film, for people. Some people like it, some people may not. And that's fine, but if you're a Hitchcock enthusiast, like I said, you got to at least see it, to say, you've seen, The Wrong Man, which, I mean, most of his movies are about the wrong man, but they're never titled that. This movie actually is titled that, The Wrong Man. So, from the very beginning, this is the wrong man, and there you go. So thank you guys for checking this out. Join us next month for a whole new episode where we'll be watching and reviewing Frenzy, which is this is like, I think it's rated R, if I'm correct. So this will be like the first R-rated, like this is basically his real life, like slasher serial killer type movie and stuff. So just be ready for it. This may not be something you want to show Bonnie, honestly. Pretty rough, from yeah, I think she'd fall asleep maybe a little bit, but thank you so much, Larry, and everybody else. Thank you guys so much for checking this out. Join us next month, and we're excited. We can't wait to do more Hitchcock for you. So have a good one, everybody.
Till that time.
Bye.